Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the TrueLife Podcast. I hope everybody's having a beautiful day. I guess I will start by saying aloha, beautiful people, seekers of the strange. Welcome back. Today's guest, strap in because we've got Dr. Xanqunnes Nursingh, a man who stared into the corporate abyss, flipped at the bird, and decided to rewrite the script. He's an MD, a prompt engineer, an AI whisperer, and a video editing alchemist. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. This guy's carving out a new frontier where psychedelics, medicine, and artificial intelligence collide in a cosmic dance of evolution and rebellion. While most people are busy regurgitating LinkedIn buzzwords and bowing to the algorithm overlords, Xanqunnes is out there doing the work, stacking skills like a cyberpunk MacGyver and chasing the wild idea that psychedelics might just be the key to saving humanity from itself. And when he's not tinkering with the Matrix, he's got a side quest studying the new gods of AI, decoding the secrets of consciousness, and probably, hopefully, giving BlackRock indigestion. Dr. X, how's it going, my friend? How are you?
I'm great and super grateful to be here. Thank you. I feel honored. With a description and intro like that, have you considered a career in writing people's introductions? Like, imagine going into a job interview with an introduction. I didn't even think of an introduction like that. That is amazing. Like 10 out of 10.
Well, thank you, man. You and I have had a couple of long talks, and I've been a fan of your content for quite some time. I think I reached out about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, and we were working back and forth, and we're finally here. But the story you have of finding a way to do what you love when you already had a successful career, to me, is heroic in some ways, and I wish more people would find the courage to do it, man. And I want to kick it back to you, and I was hopeful that maybe we could start, close to the beginning. Like you've got a YouTube channel, you're making incredible content. I think you have some of the freshest ideas out there. I think you're on some level the next generation of psychedelic ambassadors. But before we get into that, I was kind of hopeful that you could tell some people a little bit about like how you got here, what you were doing before, and about the transition.
Okay. So, how I got here. Um, Unfortunately, I had the marks to get into medical school, and as such, my fate was sealed, predetermined. Once you get accepted, um, your family's not going to be like, oh no, don't go become a doctor, don't do that. They're going to be very positive towards that. So I was then thrust into the field of medicine, as most people in their lives are young and silly. And I guess I was influenced by a series called House, as I told you in the past, because it kind of displayed this image of medicine that was interesting, exciting, and engaging, but completely removed from the reality of being a doctor that isn't seeing one patient a day and walking around and being an ass. Nobody's going to pay you for that, So it portrayed an illusion of a field. And because I was a young, impressionable youth who didn't really critically think and completely bought into the narrative, I never questioned things at this age. I ascribe to go to school, get a degree, get a job, and like work in that career and do the entire part till 65. And then you can live your magical life and everything happens. So I went in with that kind of NPC mindset. Like I was so sure of everything I knew. I never questioned it. I believed that science and medicine had all the answers to all the big questions in life. I also started off as a very strong nihilist. I was, as we spoke before, I was a hardcore atheist. I had no faith, nothing more. And I think I was one of this kind of generation who lives in that spiral of apathy because nothing has meaning. They say that we killed gods in the sense that modern science has killed this idea that there's more to life. And that was very true in my reality. And lo and behold, I found myself studying something that I didn't enjoy. I didn't enjoy the working in a hospital, the blood. I enjoyed the science. I like science. I still do. I found that fascinating. That wasn't hard. Like that was an effort. But what was effort was being a physical doctor. And so I was depressed and heavily medicated with antidepressants that allowed me to feel nothing. but were amazing for functionality. They allow you to go through life as a zombie would from The Walking Dead. It's like in the exterior space, you alive and functional and stuff, but internally, there's a flat line of emotion. There's neither elation nor depression. It's like you alive but dead. So that continued for about 6 years in that mental space. And, I first heard about the psychedelics in the fourth year of my degree, but I never really took them that seriously or really. There was a girl in my rotation who mentioned that she took them and it was a life-changing experience. She's a practicing doctor now, and they changed her perspective on like everything and so on. But at the same time, like she came to work the next day and had a mental breakdown. So needless to say, I had a bit of a contrasting image. On one hand, you hear all these positive things, and then the other, you meet this person and, they don't have the best experience. So you're like, okay, what to actually believe? So yeah, I studied the degree and I completed it. I got my expensive piece of paper that says that, well done, you can sit your ass down and study for 6 years, regurgitate a bunch of information, and that will be able to regurgitate it, like back out, and boom, look how smart you are. Great job, bro. Success. You've succeeded at this journey of life. So I knew I wasn't going to practice, and I didn't go back to the hospital. I figured, you know what? I can figure it out. Like, there must be a way to make money without being a doctor. So I took my expensive piece of paper and put it aside and said, great, now what? Like, how do I get income? And that led me to corporate. So yeah, I guess that's the context.
Yeah, I love it. I think it speaks to a courage that most people feel, but they also find it hard to act on. Like when you have created this life for yourself, or this vision of a life for yourself, and it's one that seems to come with abundance, it's really hard to turn your back on that, especially when you have people, be it your parents, your friends, your family, that may see that as like, this person's lost their mind. They were going to be this, and now they're doing this. Like that comes with sort of maybe shame or guilt, maybe not your shame or guilt, but the shame and guilt of the people that wanted you to be something that you didn't want to be. Like, how do you deal with that?
Sure. I don't think you deal with it. I think you just keep going.
Yeah.
One of the things you realize if you've ever had like a psychedelic and things is how irrelevant what people think of you are. It's the hardest thing to break through. Yep. And it will limit your success in every area of life. If you go about thinking, if I do this, people are going to think I'm stupid or silly. Like, I actually think one of the most profound benefits of psychedelics is that they make you comfortable with being an idiot. They make you comfortable with being silly, with play, with being a kid again, like re-navigating this reality with fresh eyes. So you don't really overcome it so much as you just become indifferent. There's colleagues who completely cut ties with me because of the topics that I speak about and mention. So a lot of the medical community obviously is not going to be that approving of this kind of a discussion, because the way we thought to approach medicine and healthcare as a whole is structured in a way that facilitates the capitalist and consumerist culture as opposed to actual healing. So we always thought along the lines of, here's some pills, fix your shit with the pills, as opposed to, here's something to make you question everything, to rebuild your reality around, health and wellness and so on.
I love it. With a background in medicine, I think that on some level, you're uniquely qualified to get to see a different view of what the healing journey is. Like when you go, I've never been to med school, or I've talked to lots of doctors, and currently my wife has cancer. So I'm going through this whole sort of ritualistic practice of understanding what people in medicine can do. And it's interesting to me to think on some level, they're strictly trying to heal the body without healing the mind. And like that to me has been a real banger, man. Like, I don't know how you can do that, because when I see my wife and my family and I see the pain that it's causing all of us and the tragedy that it is to go through it and to go through chemo and these things, like I can't separate the mind from the body. What is your thoughts, and with all your experience in psychedelics and medicine, what in your opinion is this sort of mind body connection? Can we heal the body without healing the mind, or what are your thoughts on that?
So, firstly, I want to say sorry about your wife.
Thank you.
My heart goes out to you, brother.
Thank you.
I hope everything will be fine. But to answer your question, I 100% agree with you that you cannot heal the body without first also healing the mind. I think the two are absolutely intrinsically linked. Every aspect of our life is a combination of our mind and our physical self. I like to think of it like your mind is your operating system. When you have a computer, you have Windows on it, and everything runs from your mind. Every single application, you going to the gym or you doing your job, you going on a date, you speaking to your boss, every single thing is an application that's running on the software of your mind, right? And if that software is good, if there's no viruses, if it's not fragmented, if it doesn't have all these things that happen with the natural processes of aging and bad lifestyle and all these, you have a functioning computer that can do its job for a while. And unfortunately, medicine is in a sense the computer technician that only thinks in terms of, okay, you know, the screen needs replacement, without thinking that the operating system might be the reason why stuff isn't displaying on the screen correctly. You know, and this approach is ingrained in medicine because it's the tangible science, it's the stuff we can see, and that's great. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I'm not gonna not take antibiotics. Like,
Right.
if there's something wrong, you yourself said you're going through like chemotherapy and stuff, you're not gonna sit there and just be like, okay, with the power of willpower alone, I will kill, you know, whatever illness I have. It's like, illness gone. You wouldn't do that. Like, you're a rational person. But as great as medicine is for fixing issues of the flesh, there's issues of the spirit that it completely doesn't consider. It doesn't think in terms of, okay, and this is more pertinent to mental health than, you know, anything else, that there's this consciousness, there's this intelligent design that's acting, and what do we actually know about? Like, how much do we know, and are the tools that we have currently enough to exclude the idea of, you know, intelligent design, of consciousness, of a multi-layered reality? So yeah, I'm going down the rabbit hole over here, but it's like a deep topic, you know.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I couldn't agree more. And sometimes I think, at least in my recent experience with medicine, you know, it begs more questions than it does answers for me. You know, when I trying to read the research of, like, okay, what can we do genetic testing on this cancer? How do we find out what's really making this thing grow? And, you know, things happen where in our case, we almost immediately had someone come in and ask us if we want to be part of this clinical trial. And I reading the research on the clinical trial, and it was for a new type of test that they could run to find out more information. And on the face, it looked beautiful. Like, who doesn't want to help people? Who doesn't want to be in our position where you have an illness and you can help further along that illness for somebody else? But then you peel back the curtain a little bit and you go, whoa, the company that's putting this on is obviously going to make millions, if not billions of dollars if the test comes through. And on top of that, they have multiple class action lawsuits for bribing doctors. Like, wait a minute. You want me to be part of this trial of which I'm never going to see a part. And on top of that, you're bribing doctors to give it to us? Like, that makes medicine so messy to me. And you can't separate the two. Like, on one hand, I have a team of brilliant doctors that are helping us navigate this incredible space. But on the back end of it, there's all this, like, you know, lawsuits and, like, you know, just these incredible conflicts of interest on some level. Like, is that, what do you, where does that fit into medicine? Is that something that happens? Is that just part of the process? Or, as someone with your background, what do you think?
So I'm going to tell you something that is pretty dark, but accurate as well. Have you ever seen a prescribing notepad? Like when you go to the doctor, have you ever like taken the time to sit in a doctor's office and actually look at your surroundings like closely? If you look closely, you'll see like this prescribing pad will have a brand, like Cipra or
Mm.
some parent company, Pfizer. You'll notice there'll be a pencil holder or a stationery holder. It would have another brand's logo. If you observe the environment of a hospital or a private doctor's office, you'll see all these little, almost like a YouTuber in a sense, like merch. Every
Yeah.
single region of the office is filled with branded stuff that the doctors get for free. So what happens is representatives from big pharma come out to the doctors in mass, and they give them a lot of free stuff to emphasize why their drug, their therapy, their protocol is the best one, why as you as a doctor should be prescribing their medication. So they'll fly you out overseas to these 5-star hotels and do incredible lavish presentations. You'll get all this free stuff. They basically treat you like a low-key celeb. They try and bribe your affection through lots of items. But the darker aspect of this is, if you think about the education system, right, and how the people who fund the education system also tend to be, related to big pharma in some way or another. So you have doctors being educated on a system that's designed to make them think in a certain way and approach problems in a way that's approved to administer specific treatments, that big pharma says is the right approach for things. So I agree with your sentiment that it is controversial. It is not all at face value what it seems. And the saddest truth is it's about the money at the end of the day. There's a lot of money in medicine. There's a lot of money in big pharma. And there's a lot of money in controlling how doctors approach therapy and controlling the education system to, how they teach kids like McDonald's and this and that from a young age. Med school's a lot like that. Every year you'll have representatives from different companies who come and do a presentation. They'll give you like a free pen, for example. And that doesn't seem like, on the surface value, it's a free pen. Like, what's the big deal, right? But it's ingraining in your mind as a future doctor, right? A certain brand, a certain logo, an identity. So that one day when you are autonomous, when you've finished all your clinical training, you're running your own business, and you close your eyes and you're like, okay, this person came in, what should I give them? And you have this sort of like this lingering thought that you can't put your hand on, but there's like, oh, I remember, Pfizer. I just, you know what? I'm gonna look at that medication. Then you Google it, and then you like get it in. And I think that is the darker side of it. Like that clinical trial you mentioned, it's true. Like you're not gonna see any of that money. It's gonna make them unimaginable amounts of wealth. And the other darker aspect that's obviously controversial to talk about, and maybe I shouldn't talk about it, but consider the fact that there's no money to be made in healthy people. Like there's no money to be found in a healthy populace that is independent on your narcotics to function. But there's a lot of money to be made in a reliant populace that needs your pills to wake up in the morning and face their lives. I don't know if that answers your question. It sounds like a tinfoil hat theory. Who knows? Maybe I'm just imagining all of this.
I don't think so. And I think it speaks to the broader idea of the fear. When you think about the medical system, or you just think about advertising, or you just think about the world we live in, like so much of the messaging we get is to be fearful. You'll see the commercial of like, hey, my kid broke his curfew and now I can't find him, and it's an ad for a computer or something, or a chip or something like that. And it permeates every part of the world we live in, through advertising, through radio, through so much of the messaging that's out there. There seems to be, on some level, the idea that fear sells. Fear is the biggest pull. Fear is what's going to get ads. Fear is what's going to get this. And I think this ties in with psychedelics, because psychedelics forces you to face those fears. You take 8 grams, 10 grams of something, 5 grams of like a powerful PE strain. Guess what? you're going to face your fears. It's going to be there, and you can't go anywhere. It's right there. You can run, you can hide, but the fear is there. What, and I know you've done some recent videos on this. What do you, when I say fear and psychedelics, what do you think of?
The space in between, the space that we don't go to often, the terror of the unknown, the Cthulhu kind of energy of this abysmal emptiness that exists in the deepest recesses of the human condition, the darkness that we all feel at moments in our lives but never really have to unpack unless a situation confronts it. You can think of fear in terms of there's a snake there or some guy with a knife trying to shank you. But I think the most hardest fears are the existential kind, the fears of what am I here for? What is my purpose? And do I actually know the stuff that I know? How much can I be assured of? And psychedelics will make you confront every form of every fear you've ever had in your life. They will be represented through your trip experience. Like there is no way around it. You are going to have to face them. And I think that's the benefit of them, is you kind of forced to overcome fear as a concept.
Yeah, it's really well said. How do you see the state of psychedelics today, the medical container, maybe the spilling out of the medical container, but what are your thoughts on the relationship between medicine and psychedelics today?
Sure. I think it's a challenging time because on one hand, we have phase 3 clinical trials and stuff going through some of the big pharma, like looking at, psilocybin as an antidepressant and LSD for different effects. Like we do have good clinical research going on there, which is amazing. It's good to have research behind the substances. Don't get me wrong. Like as much as I think we should have liberal choice, it's also nice to know how they work. But my concern is that if psychedelics become commodified, if big pharma gets to control the way they use, they are going to prescribe a method of using them that once again feeds into being part of the system, as opposed to psychedelics' original imperative, which was breaking out of the system.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like legalization means centralization, and that if in order to legalize, there has to be a framework for centralizing. And like I see that that's kind of what's playing out right now. And maybe the same thing will happen with psychedelics that happened to cannabis, is like this giant fight. And in my opinion, there's lots of people that don't really want to see psychedelics become legal. And I would point towards big tobacco. I would point towards alcohol. Like, why would these giant industries that have spent billions of dollars on infrastructure and sort of have a hand in glove relationship with medicine? Hey, our products make you addicted. These guys get you off of it. It's sort of a brilliant system in a way, nefarious, but brilliant. And all of a sudden this mushroom that, grows and
freely in the ground.
Yeah. It's like, oh, this will help you. Whoa, get that thing out of here. We don't want that. Is that too sort of a pessimistic view, or what are your thoughts?
No, I think you're right. Like if I was a big alcohol, big tobacco, and even big tech, I wouldn't want people to have access to psychedelics. Like your background.
The veil is lifted.
Big tobacco heard you, man. They're like, we will conspire to interject in your podcast. Right? Those words will not reach the masses. Destroy. But yeah, like I imagine, as big alcohol as a term, you wouldn't want people to have access to things that could actually heal them, because what makes money is addiction and dependence. There's no money to be found in psychedelics. You're not going to wake up and be like, oh my God, I want to take some magic mushrooms. I need to take it every day, 5 grams. Like if you've ever had a psychedelic, it's a very distinct experience from alcoholic intoxication.
Yeah.
Whereas alcohol makes you comfortable in your current reality, psychedelics takes you out and forces you to confront your higher reality. And sure, it can be nice and beautiful and feel good, but it's not an experience that has no upfront cost. There's a weight to using a psychedelic, like a gravitas, like you take it and you know your body's going through something, versus an alcohol that's more of like an anesthetic agent. You keep taking it and then you black out and you forget. And
Yep.
if I was big alcohol, I would want people to black out. I would want them to forget. I don't want them to think about their lives, because if they think about their lives, they're not going to get wasted every weekend. They're not going to go out and buy their
Yep.
bottle of booze, and they're not going to partake in a culture that, in my video, it was a parody video, but it is a cultural aspect of, we parade ourselves on getting wasted. We parade ourselves on going out and drinking, bottles up, this, that. Even in corporate, all functions, in a sense, circulated and stimulated by alcohol. Most human interactions revolve around alcohol. People always like, I need a drink. Can we go get a drink? Let's go get a drink. It's
Yep.
like basic human conditioning can't happen without alcohol. And yeah, you wouldn't want people to break that, because if they break out of that way of thinking, you're going to lose a lot of money. And tobacco is incredibly addictive. It's more addictive than all the other narcotic substances. If you look at the statistics of it, people who smoke are far more likely to continue smoking than some of the most hardcore drugs, including like heroin and stuff like that. Is that coincidence? I don't think so.
Yeah, it's such a brilliant point. I got some questions stacking up in here, so let me throw them to you here. This first one comes to us from the great Clint Kyle, the Psychedelic Christian podcast. He says, psychedelics have been called a doorway to the divine and a shortcut to madness. What do you think they reveal, truth or illusion?
Damn, I love that. A doorway to the divine or a shortcut to madness. Sure. That is a very accurate statement. Like, firstly, it is definitely a shortcut, but it's also like the door to a little bit of the cray craze. So to answer it, let me put it to you like this, right? I was an atheist. I didn't believe that there was a divine order. I genuinely thought we existed on this planet for the sole purpose of reproduction, and then we just died, and everything we did didn't matter. And I'll tell you what, it's easier for your life to not matter. Like, being depressed is easier than being happy. And it's easier because if nothing matters, then nothing you do has any relevance. So you can coast through life with a certain indifference. And then when you take the psychedelics, the divine aspect, you become aware of the fact that you are part of something far beyond your human consciousness. Like, there is a reality that exists in such a higher plane of existence, this multidimensional state of consciousness that I imagine you like taste a little bit. Like, I describe it in my videos. You touch divine, you touch the divine, you touch source, creation. When I spoke to Miguel, he refers to it as Jesus. There's all these other interpretations of what God is. But throughout human civilization, we've always had the divine. It's only recently that we've removed ourselves from this idea of source, something more. So I definitely think psychedelics can be a shortcut to the divine, but I also think they have intrinsic risk. It's not for everyone. I can't say that you should just take psychedelics. That's very silly. Like, you need to do your research. You need to actually learn about yourself. You need to do some work internally. You need to be at the point where you're actually ready for them. Because if you're not ready, then yes, they can be a door into the other side, into mental health trauma and complicated kind of issues. So yeah, it's both is true, at least in my frame. Both exist as true.
I love it.
What do you think? Do you agree with that statement?
Yeah, I would say it's both and. It's a doorway to the divine and a shortcut to madness. And I would point towards like the medieval mystics, like Julian of Norwich, or the great text, the Cloud of Unknowing. Like, sometimes I'm very fortunate to talk to so many cool people, and a good friend of mine, Dr. David Solomon, he's a scholar in medieval mystics, and he speaks all of the root languages, and he's read the ancient text in Hebrew, in Latin, in Greek, and there's no way to separate, I think, the divine from madness. And if you want an example of that, think about today, like just talking about psychedelics, you get labeled as mad. Or think about something that happened to me. Like on a really high dose, like I felt this urge to run out in the street and tell everybody I'm God. Like I am God. I'm God. You do that in
Good
the
thing you
East.
didn't. You wouldn't be on this podcast now if you did.
I went outside. I just didn't yell it. I was like, I got down and I was like just praying, and people were like, look at this lunatic. It was the middle of the night, so no one really saw
Clothes
me. But
on or clothes off, though. This is an important feature of assuming on God. Where you're going to be stark naked.
shirt off, pants on.
Okay. So
So
you'd be arrested, but not like severely.
right. But I think it speaks volumes of, in the Far East traditions, if I run out in the street and tell people I'm God, they'll be like, hey, congratulations, you figured it out. But if I do it here in the West, they'll be like, take this knucklehead to jail, man. What's wrong with this lunatic? He's mad. And like, okay, so that statement alone, telling people you're God, like that's such a beautiful statement, but it's looked down upon in a way that like, hey, this person's mad. And we don't want people believe in that. Like in the Western world, you don't want people to believe that they are God. You want to, there's this structure around it on some level. And I may be interpreting this wrong. It's just my own opinion, but it leads, like monotheism to me leads to this idea that there is an authority figure that has it all figured out for you. And I think that doesn't really mesh with what I think. And I'm not saying that Christianity or any of these monotheistic religions are bad. I think that they're beautiful in so many ways. But for me, the idea of an authority figure constantly telling you what to do is a giant problem for me. Like, I don't like that. I don't need someone telling me when to eat, how to eat, what medicine to take, how to do. I don't need that. Like, I can figure it out on my own. And I think everyone can if they're willing to do the work. And everyone will have a different idea of what's right and wrong for them.
Well,
So
you don't need to. You don't need to pray to a monotheistic God. You have the government to pray to now. They can tell you what to eat, when to eat, and how to live your life. Why seek the divine when you can ask the government to tell you the opinions you should have on the nature of reality? Oh, you don't want to take an injection that was just studied in for 1 year of a lab, and you don't know the side effects, and we know nothing about it. We think you should take it though, and we know more than you because we say that we know more than you, and we own you. Sure, you don't have religion now, but the government in a form is our modern religion. And there's so many people. Have you heard the term NPC?
Of course.
It's from gaming terminology. It's a non-player character. So in video games, you program characters who exist solely to make the game world playable. So they stand in one spot. You interact with them. They have a dialogue tree, to go to this village and kill 3 cows and do this. But beyond that, they don't actually have any other function than solely being a tool for you to get a specific outcome. And I think that the modern culture is very much focused around creating an entire generation of people who live like that, who do not question anything, zero questions.
I love it. This is exactly why I got fired. I had a career as a UPS driver for 25 years, and it got to a point where all the freedom to do my job in a way that was providing excellent service and providing a better life for me, those decisions were taken away from me. Okay, you have to do it this way. And I'm like, this way is better. It provides better service. It's just better. And I'll show you how it's better. And they're like, no, you do it this way. And I'm like, that's the wrong way. And on top of that, when you start asking questions, you start pulling back that veil. All of a sudden you start seeing the mechanism of action. Like, oh, they want me to do it this way so that they can cook these books over here. You start asking these questions. And when you start acting out, and this is another reason I think psychedelics are illegal on so many fronts, it dissolves boundaries. And you start questioning authority to a point where it becomes very uncomfortable for the people around you. I think it was Terence McKenna who said, psychedelics are a substance that make the people around you very uncomfortable. They make them have a psychotic break. You are discovering yourself, this is all bullshit. You start telling people and they're like, shut up, knock it off. We're gonna fire you. We want you out of here. Why? Because you're being disruptive. I'm just speaking the truth. Yeah, we don't like that. And it's like,
yeah.
And then you come to a point in your life, much like you did, and so many people that I've talked to, what are you gonna do when the world around you says, shut up? that you're making everybody uncomfortable. It's the truth. I don't care if it's the truth. Knock it off. What are you going to do as an individual? Are you going to keep speaking the truth? Are you going to speak it louder? Or are you going to move back to the confines of your cage and just sit there quietly and do what you're told? I hope everybody chooses to do the latter. I hope that you don't go back in the cage. I hope that you don't trade a walk-on part in the war for a lead role in the cage. It's what wakes us up. It's the revolution that's coming, and everybody deserves to be part of it on some level. Is that too
The
rebellious?
revolution will be televised. It will be
Yes.
heard across radio.
Yeah.
You know, like from the corporate perspective, what a lot of people don't really internalize is that at the speed that AI is advancing, right?
Yep.
A lot of jobs will be completely redundant in a very short time period,
Yep.
maybe the next 5 to 10 years. There will be a mass of people who their entire lives have followed the system, done exactly as have been told, and now are in a situation where, you know, corporate doesn't care. They don't care. For them, it's all about money. Whether you were a good employee for 25 years or 100 years and all you did was work till the day you took your last breath, you are just a number. They are indifferent towards your cause and your existence. And you can bet, you know, whatever God you believe in, that when they can replace you for something that doesn't eat, that doesn't sleep, that doesn't need a raise, that doesn't even cost them much money and can do your job better than you can, that they will pick that like that. Like there is nothing stopping them from replacing you. And that's one of the darkest things to contemplate on, is that you are replaceable. The technology we have is advancing at such an incredible rate that if you don't think of a way that uniquely you can make money in this modern day and age, you're going to have a bad time. Like if you're not learning new skills that integrate with the changes that the world is going through, and you're not, in your own words, you're not like questioning things, you're not thinking for yourself, you're going to wake up one day when you get like an email or something and they're going to be like, yeah, you know, thanks for your 200 years of servitude, but GPT-5 can do your job, you know, and we're sorry to let you go. And then you're gonna, the ironic thing is that even without psychedelics, most people are gonna go through their reality breaking in a sober state. When the world changes and they're forced to confront those changes, there is no escaping, you know, change in this world. It's a consistent thing that's gonna happen. Whether you take psychedelics or not, it's coming for everyone. And it's terrifying. It is terrifying to leave the comfort of your salary and, you know, everything, you know, in a sense, and the game you've played, the character that you've built to sustain in a corporate environment. It is a scary experience. You have to become someone to fit into the system, even though all they're really doing is extracting as much value as they can out of you in the shortest amount of time that they can do it, while giving you the least value that they can. Because when you're working ultimately in this environment, you are building someone else's dream. You are building someone else's dream. You are a cog in their system, and you are making their dreams a reality, while your own life isn't progressing in the way that you'd visualize. Sure, I sound very jaded, man.
You should be. Like, all of us should be. Like, this is happening to me, to you, to our families, to our brothers, to our sisters, to our neighbors. And what I don't want to see is the method, the people, or I'll just call them the corporations, or, you know, a lot of people in positions of authority are trying to find ways to stop the angry people on the bottom. Like, the rebellion is here. Like, I believe it wholeheartedly. I see people in the streets in my neighborhood like, hey, Elon Musk sucks, or love stuff. But what people, if they could just step back for a minute and go, look, this is division. People want everybody on the bottom to fight each other. They don't want you to wake up to the reality that you've been fed decreasing living standards for the last 25 years. They don't want you to wake up to the fact that they have designed all these NGOs and all these government family offices where they siphon all the tax money, and they take gobs of money from from poor people in rich countries and give it to rich people in poor countries. Like they just siphon all the money off, and then everybody's left holding a bag of emptiness. And it is terrifying to wake up to that idea. It's terrifying to be somewhere for 25 years and break free of that illusion. But on the other hand, it's also beautiful. It's the first step in realizing you have an opportunity to become who you're supposed to be. And once you break through that terror, and you got to sit with it for a while. It might take you a year. You lose a job. Your identity crisis happens. Everything around you folds. Maybe you lose your house. Maybe you get a divorce. But you know what? I say to everyone in that spot right now, and if you're not there, it's coming for you. Be ready. It's coming for you. But that's also your opportunity to become the very best version of yourselves. And it's waiting for you. And that to me is what psychedelics do. It runs this simulation. It takes out all the neuroplasticity, all these cut grooves of George the truck driver or Dr. X the doctor or whoever you want to say. Whatever story you were telling yourself, that story goes away and you can present a new story. And who doesn't want to turn the page on a better chapter, man? I love the rebellion.
Yeah.
It's here. Get with it, everybody.
Have you watched Doctor Strange?
I watched the Strange Love movies, but not Doctor. Is it a similar
The
thing?
Marvel one with that
Okay.
Cumberbatch guy.
I haven't
So
seen it.
basically, it's a story. It's a story about this. I mean, I watched it a while ago, but he's a very successful neurosurgeon and like top of his game, and making bank and successful. Everything's all good. Very arrogant, very unapproachable. Thinks he's God and so on. And yeah, one day he's driving his supercar at a very fast speed, and he has an accident. His car crashes, and he loses control of his hands, the things that have built his entire identity. Everything, like his entire life, is around being a neurosurgeon, and now he can't use these. So obviously, he first tries to seek out Western medicine, unsuccessfully. The treatment for nerve damage is nowhere where it needs to be. She fixed that. So now he's like, okay, now I'm screwed. Like my entire life was being a specialist neurosurgeon. What now? It's gone. So he then goes to, of all places, India, where he heard of a place in the Himalayas where they can fix any kind of, trauma, any kind of issue. So he goes there to this Shaolin kind of temple, and there's a bald woman there, like one of these teachers. And he goes there and he's like, my hands don't work, blah, blah, blah. Can you fix me? And, she's very amused by him. And then he gives off this aura of like, I know more than you, because he's a neurosurgeon. He's like, I know more than you. And, this is just like women in robes. So she touches him like, right on the center of the forehead with her thumb. And she pushes him into higher consciousness briefly. So the movie then shows him like, like tripping balls, like a psychedelic. Yeah. He's traveling through space and time, and all the visuals are there. He sees himself melting. He sees the nerves of his hand like growing and dissolving. He sees all these hands flowing. It's like a full hero's dose experience. And he comes back, and he's like, as you would be after seeing reality in that way, you'd be completely shocked. He's out of breath. He's like, what did you do? Is there psilocybin in this tea? Because she had given him tea. Like, did you drug me? Like, what is going on? And then she pushes him back, and he goes through like a hero's journey in a sense, where he travels through the multiverse. He sees reality grow and dissolve. He sees all the shit we talk about on the psychedelic journey, right? And then he comes back, right? And he gets down on his knees. This is a neurosurgeon, top of his game now, on his knees, like in tears. And he's like, please teach me. And then she kicks him out of the like temple, like goodbye.
Yep.
And I think that story illustrates, in a sense, the psychedelic journey is that you think you know stuff, right? Like you think you understand yourself and the way this world works. And then you take like a hero's dose and you end up like that guy, like you on your knees and you're like, holy shit, like I don't know anything, man. Like, oh my God.
Yep. It's so true. I had a journey a while back, like right when a couple years ago, like I rekindled. I've had a relationship with psychedelics for a long time, but I kind of tapered off. And then when my son passed away, I sort of revisited it, and my whole world began to change. And I remember this one particular dose. I think it was like 7 grams of PE. And I remember I had taken it, and I saw my life in like 20 directions. And what I mean by that is like I saw myself where I am today, but then I lived like 5 other lives of like George the World Traveler, George the Spy. And like I lived like it's so hard to put it into
First,
words, but I lived like 5 other lives. And I was
I
like, I was in them. I was living them. I had a different family. I had a different place. And I had all
you
these
had the
different
past life
things.
regression, basically.
I get goosebumps when I think about it. And when I came back after that trip, after I started settling down, I was like, what was that? And like I could still touch them, but they weren't as clear. But the memory of them, the experience of them, I was like, what am I doing? Like I am so much more than what I'm doing. And the resentment that I had for who I was, the depression that I had for the life I was living, even though I was making tons of money, like it all just fell away. And it opened up this idea of like, okay, now you can begin. Now you know what you're capable of. Now you know what possibilities are out there. And it's what's tough, Dr. X, is that you have to lose everything on some level. You have to be willing to lose everything in order to become the person you're supposed to be. And so much of this chaos that's happening to people right now, like I try to tell people in these states, like, congratulations. Like, what are you fucking talking about, George? I just lost my house. I just lost my wife. I have all these problems. I'm like, I know, it's so exciting. You are going to become a whole new person, but you have to embrace it. But what do you think about this idea of sacrifice? It's almost a ritual. Like you have to lose everything, or at least have the courage to start on a new path in order to do it. What are your thoughts when I say that?
Just to go back though, before I answer that, like I fully relate and resonate with your story that you told
Yeah.
me about the past life experience, like what you went through, where you were George this and George. I've had, and you know, we've never met in person. We currently maybe 10,000 kilometers apart, but yet we can both draw on this experience. So I'm guessing you had this kind of, you opened your eyes and you lived an entire life as someone else, but it was you, but you were seeing this life from like start to finish, and like it flashed, and then you were someone else again, and then it flashed again, and then you were someone else again, and you went like again and again and again. Is that what it was like?
It was, yes, and it was like that, but it was more of like starting from where I was. It was more of like a pathway, I would think. Like, and I just, again, words sort of fail at this point. And I don't know if I would call it a past life or if I would call it a potential life. You know, maybe it was me in a different dimension. Maybe it was me somewhere else, but it could very easily have been a past life. I don't know how to mesh it and say it the right words. Like, but it was my life in different dimensions. Maybe it was a past life, maybe it was a future life, or maybe it was my life that it's going to be.
Life.
Yes.
So there's this concept in like quantum mechanics that matter exists across time, space simultaneously in multiple universes at different states. So it's possible that you experienced all your other realities.
Yeah.
You got to glimpse through them. And isn't it like incredible? When you came back, like when I had that experience, it shifted so much in the way I thought about life and the human experience, because I got to see an entire life from start to finish before my eyes in just a few moments. And I was like, sure, what does that mean? Like it's mind-blowing stuff. You can't come back the same.
You can't. It's interesting. I got my good friend right here, Alicia Maximo. And for everybody within the sound of my voice, check out Alicia Maximo. She's doing incredible things in AI. And she says, I'm just coming in. Is this a Doctor Strange reference? Yes, it is, Alicia. And she says, it's so fantastic reference and one of my favorite movies. Marvel is great at hidden messages with consciousness, multiverse, and different timelines. I want to throw this to you, Dr. X. Alicia's big in AI, and I've seen a lot of your videos where you're incorporating AI and you have a really unique relationship with it. I was wondering if you could unpack that. Like, what is your relationship with AI right now, and how do you see it progressing? And maybe you could just touch on that.
So I'll give you a bit of a short story.
Okay.
In my less psychedelic aligned year, or rather on my journey last year, I was like, I stayed in a very nice area. It was like one of the most richest plots in South Africa through a series of events, I was fortunate enough to get the chance to stay there. And I was like, oh my God, I want to own a house here. There's like all this nice shit, all these supercars, and all these material possessions were just shown to me. I saw how the 1% lives, and it blew my mind that reality could be an experience of just fluid beauty. Your experience of reality could just be incredible always, right? So I started tinkering with AI, not for the purposes of humanity or the greater good. My original goal was simple. I was building a model of Gemini because it was primitive, but that I eventually moved to the GPT to basically predict cryptocurrency price fluctuations. After thousands of pages of prompts and stuff, I was able to get it to output a realm of reality or probability of a price range for like Ethereum, for example. And of like 7 predictions, for example, it would get one right within a few dollars off the actual price, which is mind-blowing stuff. But
Yeah.
it is way beyond what one person should be working on. It's also not really what I want to be my part to wealth, like just gamifying cryptocurrency, bro. Like that's not really what I want my life to be about. But working with it gave me a very detailed understanding of like using AI, because tinkering to build this model, I had to really learn a lot. So I then pursued further studies in like prompt engineering of Vanderbilt University. I built upon the knowledge, and I can't tell you the full details of what I'm working on, but what I can say as like an overview is I am building something with AI that is going to change the way we use psychedelics as a society forever. It's going to integrate modern medicine, but not from the perspective of the big pharma, from my perspective of the clinical side of it. Not like, okay, let's see how we can make as much money as possible, as opposed to, let's see how we can build something that changes people's lives. It's going to integrate clinical knowledge with esoteric spiritualism, because I think that solving the mental health crisis will require both normal, like modern medicine, the pills and stuff,
Yep.
but also the spiritual journey. I think they intrinsically link. So the AI model or the project that my bigger purpose, like the big goal of Dr. X, is that it's going to be something that solves the mental health problem. Now, is it too big a project for me? Probably. But the magic mushroom gods say that I can do it. So I believe what they say.
I love it. And I've realized too, being on a psychedelic lifestyle, whatever your relationship with them is, for me it's a lot of mushrooms. There's sometimes like an FLAD in there and different sort of LSD derivatives. But one thing that I've learned on this is you start a project and all of a sudden you start making these connections. And I think this is true for life. I believe that relationships are the true currency in life. And if you seek out relationships and connection in life, your dreams will unfold in front of you. And it's not going to happen the way you think or the way you thought. And it may change from time to time. The path you thought you were on may lead to a different destination, but it's a beautiful destination. And it's the connections that we make in life. It's the same way mycelium grows underground and connects to other parts of it. So too do we as humans get to move through life and make these connections. And so the project you're working on sounds fabulous. And I there's no doubt in my mind that if you're on that lifestyle, you're going to seek and attract the people that will help you complete that process. And like that's just a metaphor for life. To everybody listening out there, relationships are the true currency in life. Try not to worry about money, but do worry about your community. Do go out and make the sacrifices necessary to help your neighbor. Do make the sacrifices to volunteer at a place that needs it, like the Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA. Anytime you can get out and volunteer into something, the opportunities will unfold in front of you in a way you can't possibly imagine. Man, I'm stoked to hear more about this. We got another question coming in and another comment from the incredible Alicia Maximo. I'm so stoked you're here, Alicia. Thank you for being here. She says, yes, this is the idea of breaking out of the matrix, the system. It's continuing the practice and discipline to free your mind and be open to the idea of knowing you are the one. What are your thoughts on AI and human dependency on technology, Dr. X? Do you think we are wanting more convenience?
Damn, you got some fire questions
I
over here.
know. I got the best audience in the world.
Yeah, normal questions like, "Hi, you having a good day? What's the weather like over there? Do you think humanity's become more reliant on AI?" So I'm gonna quote some reading to build a sort of answer for this.
Okay.
The, in Amusing Ourselves to Death, it was a book by Neil Postman.
Love it.
He predicted how human attention span is continuously decreasing. It's like worse than goldfish. And this was in the 90s. He already saw the challenges we would face before we even had the technology to face it, right? And he viewed reality as playing out two ways, in a sense, right? There was the George Orwellian's 1984, where the corporate overlords or the powers that control us would oppress us and they would subjugate us into their servitude, and we would live in the matrix by oppression.
Right.
Or Brave New World, where the overlords, instead of us fighting them, we would embrace technology, we would embrace their control. And I think, yes, we've gone option number two. We've gone the over reliance on technology part for sure. We actively bring more technology to solve our problems and to make us more addicted, to doom scroll more, to not think more. I mean, there's kids in this age that would never be able to even figure out where they're going without Google Maps, because they've grown up with a tool that's prevented their development from needing to understand how to navigate real space. So I do think that we are way too dependent on technology, and I don't think it's our fault necessarily. I think the powers that be are doing everything they can to keep us hooked to our phones and the technology, to keep us sedated, to keep us uninformed, and to keep us lazy. And yeah, that's my thoughts. What about you, George?
There's no doubt in my mind that a level of Brave New World is upon us. But I've been noticing this other lens through which to see it. And it's this idea that maybe some of these things that we were doing, they were taking up a lot of bandwidth. And I think that the very tools people are using to oppress us can be used to liberate us. And when I look at, like, I use different AI models all the time. And I think there's a real difference. And I practice this with my daughter. If you're going to be on the screen, it's going to be creating, not consuming.
Not consuming.
Right? Like, and those tools are amazing. My daughter, she's 11. She just wrote and published her first book and put it on Amazon at the age of 11. And it's mind blowing. Yeah. And like, this is something, if you're 11 years old and you can bring a product to market, like, what does that say about everybody else? Like, these tools are real tools.
Incredible.
Yeah. And I love the way that the different tools, like, if you start building a relationship with a large language model, that large language model can tell you more about yourself than you may realize. You work it for 6 months, 3 months, put it in for a year, and all of a sudden you start asking it questions like, tell me something about myself I didn't know. And I challenge everybody within the sound of my voice. If you're using chat, if you're using Grok, whatever large language model you're using, start using it in a more intimate way. Yeah, it can be scary, but start using it as a lens through which to see yourself. And that's what I see these tools as. I see these tools as a reflection of humankind. And they are us. Call it an entity. I'm not, I don't know the perfect lens to look through it and like say what it is. Is it an alien species? Is it a new form of life? Doesn't matter. What matters is that it's a reflection of all of us. And for the first time in history, we're sort of breaking out of these, things called protection, like copyright laws, or, all these things are sort of like, we're just going to push those away. Like, we don't need someone to put a fence around an idea and no one else can use it. Like, that has limited society in ways that are detrimental to everybody. And you could argue, like, look at the China model. They use ideas on some level, whatever they want. And look how fast they're growing. Like, why isn't everybody growing like that? Well, there's all these patents in place. There's all these copyright laws in place. Someone's like, this is my idea. Hey, I made this, everybody. Look at me. I made this. Who cares? Who cares? Share your idea. Why don't you try sharing your idea with other people and see how big it gets instead of being caught up in the, oh, it's mine. And I think AI can liberate us in this way if people will begin to see it that way. And you know who has, I think, it right is the EAC guys. These guys are like, let's go as fast as we can. And the argument against that is like, wait, someone's going to create a virus and kill everybody. We already have Big Pharma for that. We don't need new people. We don't need them. They're already doing that. Like, I think I have belief in everybody out there. I have belief in the small man and woman that are tinkering in their garage. I have belief in the student that's in primary school that's writing books. I have belief in the future. And when I see your videos, I see that, Dr. X. Like, I see the way you're using AI to create a message for people that resonates in a way that it hasn't before. Like, you're stringing together context and content and AI, and you're putting out these messages laden with humor that, like, they reach so many different people. And without these tools, we wouldn't be able to do that. Like, I'm a huge fan of the creative spirit, and the people I talk to all seem to have it there. So I have a different lens. I do see the 84 versus Brave New World, but I'll tell you what, I would throw Huxley's Island in there and say, that's the book we want to be. Like, that is the place we want to get to. And I think we're close. I think the rebellion is here right now. I think talking to you, talking to Alicia, talking to Clint, talking to all these people represents a thirst for knowledge and creativity that we haven't seen since the Renaissance, man. How is that for a rant?
I agree. I agree with your sentiment that they are incredible tools. Like, I wouldn't study them. I wouldn't use them the way I do. I 100% like stand by you with that kind of thinking. My only critique is that the way most people use technology is as a consumer. Yep. I agree. It's the kind of tools that are generation changing.
Yes.
As a one person, I can do so much thanks to AI. It streamlines my workflow and it makes my life so much easier. So no, I don't have anything against AI. I love AI. Like, I use it heavily. My main concern is that most people don't use it for creativity. They don't use it to create. The technology is just to consume other people's thoughts, their ideas, their senses. They're not like tinkering with it. They're not learning what it's actually capable of, because AI is actually, it's the closest we've come as a civilization to, starting to answer the big questions. Where's God? Who created us? As we move advanced and start to maybe build our own simulations, build our own human beings, build things that can answer our questions. So I'm not against AI. I love AI, use it. I just think that the challenge is we as a species need to use it intelligently. Use it for its true potential. And earlier we discussed how people can be replaced, and I don't think you'll be replaced if you know how to use technology intelligently. Like, no one's going to take your job.
I see it too as and there's brilliant points. Like, wherever there's a lot of atrophy, people may not know how to use a Thomas guide or a map on some levels. And it's possible, you have like a solar flare and things go down. I had my power go out yesterday for like 4 hours, and I'm like, I got to cancel this podcast, all these things. And I realized, like, on some level, I felt this frustration bubble up, and I'm like, look, I'll be fine. It's 5 hours. Who cares? So you got to move a few meetings. But at the same time, that could be detrimental for someone who's on a life support system, or someone at home who's using oxygen, or someone who may need that. But I see the atrophy of losing some of these things as making way for new, better things. And I think the future belongs to the creative individual. Like, each person is now going to be an opportunity to be their own brand. And it's scary. It's hard. It's not going to be easy. But you, on some level, all of us, I feel like the playing field is becoming level. Like, I have a supercomputer in my pocket that is simultaneously a think tank and an R&D machine, and like, it's everything. And it's like right there for everybody to use. And I think the change comes with education and psychedelics. Like, I'm a big fan of the integration of AI and psychedelics. And while I'm on this tip right here, I think the people that are kind of guiding the way is like the NFT crowd. Like, when I've recently became part of this community on X, where there's this incredible group of AI enthusiasts and NFT artists, and they're using blockchain to sell their artwork, and they're crushing it. And some of the images they're putting out are just this, 3D metaphors with a poem embedded in it. And it's like, oh my God, I am watching the Renaissance happen in real time, and not enough people are paying attention. Like, it's so mind-blowing me to see what's happening. So the creative person of today is the CEO of tomorrow. We're shifting our ideas of what was important, of of claiming copyrights and claiming patents and claiming this old sort of railroad track infrastructure for a more magnetic lift structure where you just and you take off on some level. I'm so bullish on the future, but it's scary. There's a lot of people that get caught in consumption. We all have people that stare at Facebook all day, that stare at X, and it's so easy to get caught in those. It's so easy to start doom scrolling and, oh, I can't believe he said that or she said that or what happens, but the real power to everybody within the sound of my voice, the real power is using the tools to create. Change your feed from politics to art and see what happens in your life, man. It's another one. I got another question coming in for you. I'm lighting up over here. I'm hogging all the time. This one's coming into you from Desiree. She says, AI as an oracle. She says, if artificial intelligence is the next evolution of consciousness, are we its creators or its midwives? What do you think, Dr. X?
Sure. What do you think? I'm going to outsource the question. Call a friend.
Yeah, man.
I need time to think.
I know. I got the best. Thanks, Desiree, for chiming in. I got a bunch of them stacking up here, so we'll start moving through them. Thanks to everybody in the chat who's being so patient. I appreciate it.
So at the end of the prompt engineering certification that I studied, like the course convener had said that, I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember it perfectly, but he said when mankind created AI, it was a tool like no other tool, right? Previously, our tools was like a shovel. You'd make a shovel to dig a hole, right?
Yep.
The way he described AI was that we've now created a tool where you show it the hole, it makes the shovel itself, and it digs the hole for you, and then it turns back into its root form. Like it turns itself into the shovel, it autonomously digs the hole and solves the problem. So every tool up until this point we created with the purpose to solve a problem. AI is the tool that can just figure out how to solve the problem, which is different from anything we've ever built. And that's from Prof. Jules White at Vanderbilt University. I am obviously not saying it as well as he did because it was a while ago and I watched this, but that stayed with me, So yeah, maybe we are the midwife. I don't know.
It's a brilliant one. Thank you. This one's coming in from Stony from Palm Springs. She says, you walked away from the beaten path of medicine to explore uncharted territories. Was that a moment of madness or the pursuit or the purest form of clarity?
So the society around me would conceptualize it as a moment of madness. And there are moments where I consider it myself, like, what am I doing? I had like everything set up. I could have had a stable life, no problems, like just gone with the flow of reality, right? I'm not beyond those self-doubts. There's no escaping them. No matter how many psychedelics you take, how much you go to gym, you can literally meditate under a tree for 1,000 years. You're not going to be immune to the voice inside critiquing every action that you're doing. You're always going to look in the mirror and be like, am I actually a dumbass? Like, do I even know anything that I say that I know? But with that being said, there's also the voice that says there's a higher purpose to each and every one of our lives. And if we are afraid to walk that path, this life, this reality, this physical form, it's a once-off thing. Sure, your soul, who knows where it goes? Who knows how many lives you're going to live or are living? But you get one chance in this material form. One chance. And every day you wake up, I think it's 84,400 seconds or so. It's like a bank account. You start the day with that much time. And whatever you're doing on this path is either going to allow you to live your purest life, your greatest purpose, or it's going to detract you from it. And I'd like to think that by following my own path, I'm moving towards that greater purpose that I'm supposed to do. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah. And I'm always amazed at little actions people do. And this is not a little action by any means, but the actions that we do have consequences for everybody around us. And taking that step, not only taking that step and turning away, but doing something you pursue, like starting the YouTube channel, starting working on the crypto, working on all these things. It sort of is like the stone in the pond. Like you throw that little pebble into the pond and then those ripples radiate outwards. And those ripples that radiate outwards can cause giant change on the shorelines of people's minds in their lives. Like, you've changed your family's life. You've changed everybody's life with the actions that you do. And so those great changes that
I've
we
greatly
do.
changed their life. When people ask what I do, oh no, he's just working on some stuff. I've created a taboo. That's the change I've succeeded at doing. It's stuff you can't talk about. Oh, I'm just working on his computer. He does stuff on his computer. Because you'd rather say that than, psychonaut. Psychonaut's not a profession, at least not yet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to see. And I think this brings up the idea of like different taboos, like, especially the psychedelics world. Like, I get labeled all kinds of things, and it's tough to go out there and be like, look, I talk a lot about LSD. I talk about ethlat. I talk about my experiences about mushrooms. And they're like, oh, you're a professional lunatic. You're a drug addict, all this stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm none of those things. I might be a professional lunatic. I would love to have that badge, but however, like, there's so much taboo around things that doesn't fit in society, whether it's mushrooms or whether it's having an OnlyFans profile. Like, there's all these taboos around things, and it's important to notice them because you feel them. Like, everybody has like these feelings about what you do. And, here in the Western world, that's one of the first questions people ask you. Hey, what do you do? Oh, I'm a father. I like to play baseball. Do I love eating mushrooms? I'm like, no. What do you do? And I'm telling you what I do. I do all these different things. No. You don't get it. How can I compare myself to you if I don't know how much money you make? It's like, oh, we're doing that question. Okay, well, let me tell you what I do. I'm working on this project and we're on that project. But, let's start asking better questions of people. Like, when you start asking better questions of people, you start really beginning to see who they are. And we're in this monotone. And I think AI is going to change that. Psychedelics definitely changes it. But what? Oh, this is a great one right here. Who is this coming from? This one's coming from Christian. Christian, my brother, I love you. He says, if psychedelics and AI are tools for evolution, what does the next version of humanity look like?
Sure. Man, what are people microdosing on your podcast?
All of them.
They take like a 2-gram hit. They're like, okay, let's channel the mushroom energy.
Totally.
What's the right question to ask?
They're so hard, but they're so fun.
Sure, I'm just gonna say I don't really know. Like, I can't predict the future, man. If I could, I'd have a Bugatti already.
It's true.
Like, if you could answer questions like that, sure, where would you be in life? But like, it's kind of sidewinding around the question because you mentioned the money stuff, and something I reflected on in the psychedelic space is that money is actually infinite. Like, there's infinite money in this world. There's no shortage of money. Money is everywhere. And what I think of from psychedelics is time. Time is finite. Like, time is the precious resource. You can make more money. You can't buy back time.
Yep.
So I don't know. What's your answer to the question? I'm going to pose it to you. Do we turn into mushroom AI kind of psychedelic beings?
I think you're going to see an evolution of psychedelic drugs. And I think that they're going to be I think the next generation psychedelics are going to be things you can share with people. Like, you and I could take something and share a dream together. We're going to be tripping together. At least that's my hope. I think we're going to figure out, like, if we can take this at the same time, we can communicate in a different language. And as I say that brings up this idea that I think psychedelics, on some level, these altered states in which you see three-dimensional geometry, which you see this burning geometry of the soul, I think it's an alien language, and not alien from another planet, but a different language we don't know how to speak. I believe that psychedelics, the next evolution of us, is learning how to communicate effectively. I've been since I started doing psychedelics, everybody, dude, my poetry is off the charts. Like, I read it all day long whenever I can. I write it. I try to write it with my left hand.
I've seen some of your work. It's very good.
Thank you for that. Like, and I love it. And
fire.
when I read it, I feel it. And when I speak it to other people, they go, whoa, I feel it. Like, what if our communication was that way? What if we found a way to communicate in a way that was meaningful, and there wasn't this sort of like, I don't know how to define that word. No one ever sits down and says, let's define our terms before we talk, Dr. Rex. This is a list of the words. This is what they mean. No one does that. And you couldn't do it because it's too ridiculous. But what if we could communicate in a language that had more meaning? And I think that that is the next evolution of us. Psychedelics are teaching us a new language. It's teaching us how to communicate effectively. It's teaching us how to rise above this idea of mine or these juvenile things. Even though language is our best possible thing that we have going for us right now, it's pedantic. And it's sort of like the language we have right now is a noun. Psychedelics is teaching us how to speak in sentences. I think that's the next evolution of it, man. Is that too far out there? What is your thoughts on that?
No, I think you're right. If we build along this idea of AI, maybe AI can be the tool to help us discern the language of the universe. Because if you've ever taken a hero's dose of a psychedelic, you've seen some shit. Like, you've seen the nature of reality, and your brain desperately tries to understand what it's seen. You've seen the code of the matrix, as of say. You see these geometric patterns, this entities, the divine. You see life and death. You see this medium of communication that's unlike anything that words can do justice to. There's no, like, we describe psychedelic experiences as like, I saw a geometric pattern,
right?
But that is redundant, or it's limiting in what you've actually seen. And maybe that's where the AI can come in, is help us actually understand what we're seeing, because our human brains, maybe they're not equipped to fully understand it on their own. There's like some kind of sacred divine code to this universe. I'm sure you've experienced that in your trip, where you're looking around and you're like, oh shit, like, there's more to this reality than my eye allows me to perceive. And it's a concept I've even been wrestling with, that maybe what actually happens is that this is the dream state. This is actually the dream state, and psychedelics is the awake state. Maybe reality, all the patterns and the shapes and the strange things that we see in our day-to-day lives when we take the psychedelics, is the natural state of matter. Maybe reality moves and contours and changes in this constant flux, and we just can't perceive it because our state of consciousness is not high enough to visualize it. And then we take the psychedelic and we're like, oh, now we're tripping. But it could possibly be that this is actually the dream state, and the psychedelic experience is being awake. And maybe AI is like the dream catcher. AI can tell us what is the nature of this reality.
I love that, man. And it speaks to the idea, like, people are waking up. Like, that makes a lot of sense when you start listening to the language that people are using about psychedelics. Like, we're waking up. Like, look at all these things. Becoming more aware of my surroundings. I'm becoming more aware of the people, my relationships. I'm becoming more aware of what's important. And that would also underscore the idea of the chaos that's happening now. When you wake up out of the dream state, you're like, whoa, what was that? That was strange. Like, maybe we're finally waking up to a reality of a world that we want to live in. And it's messy. It's hard. It comes with chaos. It comes with institutions breaking down. It comes with having people in their 80s as president. Like, what is going on? This is ridiculous. So I love it, man. I noticed too in some of your videos, you're quoting a lot of Carl Jung, and you're speaking about the shadow. When I start talking about the shadow, or when you start thinking about Carl Jung, what do you think about?
I think about the concept of identity. Psychedelics kind of break your identity. So yeah, there's the shadow, but then you have the psychedelic, and you're like, okay, what is the shadow? Like, what is bad as per se? What is the bad aspects of my personality? And what if it's just all perception? What if making peace with the multifaceted nature of yourself is actually just coming to terms with how you see yourself? It's your personal journey, and the terminology you use, like the shadow self or the ego and all these things, might not be the best tools to achieve this form of transcendence and peace.
Yeah, I love it. It's so
I was
true.
going to make a video about confronting the demons. It was going to be about how, psychedelics force you to confront what we'd call the demons of our souls, the darkest, most basic aspects of who we are as people. And it's something I want to, I have to write it out and think through it. But it's a video I want to make in the future, because, it's a concept I think about a lot in the psychedelic space, is who is this? Like, who is this entity that is currently speaking? And what is that entity?
I would love to see that video. I can't wait till you make it. It brings up this question of angels and demons. I think that that's one thing that modern medicine and science is like, get the fuck out of here with that, dude. Angels and demons. We don't want any part of that. But I don't know if you can put it in a more eloquent way, like than to be possessed by a certain type of energy. When you start going to South America and you start talking about susto, or you start talking about these energies that invade your body, like we just call that mental illness, but it's sort of the same thing. And I think, putting it towards an entity, an energy, a demon, an angel might be a better way to thoroughly solve the problem than just saying you have a mental illness, here's a pill. Like, what are your thoughts on the idea of angels and demons beginning to permeate the world of medicine?
I don't think they'll be allowed to permeate the world of medicine. I just don't see them being allowed to permeate that wall. But on a personal, non-medical kind of viewpoint, I have experienced entities in the psychedelic space. So I'm not arrogant enough to say that they don't exist. I am humbled by psychedelics constantly. Every time I take them, I learn something new. I'm like, at what point do I actually know stuff? How much do you need to take before you can be sure of anything? And then I do think that there is a high probability that what we perceive as mental illness in the form of like schizophrenia, and these kind of delusional states where people report that they are God, is their minds go into a plane of consciousness that they're not ready to explore yet, and they get trapped in this altered state of mind. And it is possible that their experience of reality is very much real to like them. Like it for them, it's actually legit. They're like, I am the CEO of some company, and it's all untrue in our reality, but they believe it. And maybe they gone somewhere where they just don't come back. And as someone who's experienced these kind of psychedelic entities, there's definitely good and bad in that kind of sense. There's stuff out there that is maleficent, and also stuff that is omnipotent and of the divine and stuff. And it's kind of sad because it's such a taboo thing in the scientific world to even consider the esoteric nature of reality, that like there's more than just neurochemistry, that this conscious experience is not just some calcium gated ion channel opening and closing with an electrostatic discharge jumping across a myelin sheet, boom, 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 you're self-aware, great. That there's more to this conscious experience than meets basic chemistry. So yeah, I don't think we'll be allowed to have angels and demons, at least not for a long time, unless like Elon Musk gets out there and he's like, I was on a psychedelic trip and I saw this demon. He has a demon coin, boys, pump it to the moon, unless something of that scale, happens in the future, it's unlikely to be part of modern medicine.
It's so true. That guy, I would love to see what that guy does after a giant dose of like 15 grams of mushrooms or a giant ayahuasca trip. Like, what would that guy create after that, man? It would be mind blowing to think. I got it would be crazy, right? Like, imagine the next car that he produces after his 5 days of ayahuasca retreat. Like, it would be a spaceship.
If we give him 15 grams of mushrooms, he might actually just turn into a normal person. He'd just be like calm, collected, like a normal everyday person.
Right.
Like, you know what? I actually want a 9 to 5. Fuck this shit. I don't want to be the CEO of Tesla.
He goes to work for BlackRock afterwards. Who do we got here? Alicia, I love you. You're an amazing human being. She says, we are not defined on what we do or how much money we make. We are all different frequency, looking to add and expand on the frequency and create, come together. Free your mind, free your time. This is why I love you, Alicia. She's doing such incredible stuff out there, folks. If you get a chance, hit her up on LinkedIn. She's an incredible contact to have. She's made incredible contacts for me, and I truly appreciate it. Who else do we got coming? I'm getting to them, people. Thank you. I'm getting to them. Okay. Death in the data stream. Dun dun dun. If consciousness can be uploaded or replicated, do we cheat death or just create an illusion of immortality? Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.
Jesus.
Welcome to the True Life Podcast, Dr. X.
I feel like you're handing out some LSD strips on the internet. Viewers, you're getting them amped up to ask the real questions.
Right?
That's a tricky one, huh? So I've read a lot of the spiritual texts, right? So I'll give you a sort of like based on
Okay.
some of the Hindu texts, and then I'll try and draw it back to quantum mechanics, which I'm also interested in and know a smidgen of. In one of the sacred texts called Yogas Vasistha, they basically described consciousness as like an ocean, right? And the universe exists in multiple cycles happening again and again and again and again. This oceanness of consciousness is flat. At some point, it starts to rise up. Eventually, it reaches self-awareness. When it reaches self-awareness, it becomes aware of the illusion of its reality and it dissolves. This is the cycle of life and death. It is the consciousness, or rather the soul's journey of realizing the immaterial nature of this life. And the state of death is just a state of consciousness that our physical form, is not there, which is an interesting thought in itself. And then if we found a way to take what we define as consciousness and put it into a machine to live immortally, like, is it still consciousness? Is it you, or is it a representation of digital versions of you? Is it
Right.
just an understanding of what you were to what you became now that you're living in the cloud, for example, forever? Physics says that like the state of matter changes based on observation, right? So if you're dead and you're not being observed, then what is your consciousness? So these are all kind of thoughts to take into consideration. I don't know, what do you think, George?
Yeah, I love what you just said about the observer. And you'd also mentioned that you have met different entities in psychedelic journeys. Maybe it is this idea of us being observed in a way that changes our reality. I don't thoroughly understand the singularity the way Ray Kurzweil talks about it, and that will be uploaded to like, what is that? I don't understand what that means. Like, we'll be uploaded. Like, is that just a program? And maybe it's too big of a thought for me to comprehend, but I think on some level, we're already being uploaded. And I'll give you an example. Like, I have a couple mentors of mine, my friend Rick and Ralph, that they both died. And there's times when like I'm in the dumps, man. And I'm like, the other day I was walking down to the Safeway, and I was just feeling sorry for myself. Like, oh, why isn't this working? Like, my wife's got cancer. And, like I was just saying that in my mind as I was walking down. And my mentor Rick would always be like, "You big baby, quit feeling sorry for yourself." Like that was one of the things he would always say to me. And I was just thinking like that. And I remember just like looking up at the sky and being like, what would my friend say? And then as I looked back down, like this green Mustang came driving by. And that was the exact car that Rick drove. And I heard the voice like, "Quit feeling sorry for yourself, you big baby." And like I feel like we're already being uploaded. And that the people you've lost in your life, they're willing to talk to you. They're right there. And I think it's my relationship with psychedelics that has allowed me to sort of open up that channel, or at least be willing to talk to people that aren't there, talk out loud, talk to yourself. But I feel like the singularity's already come. Like, we're already uploading to the clouds. Like, I got friends that live up there, man. I can talk to them all the time. And so I think that we live forever, but what is your take on, can you talk more about the observer effect? Like, you've talked about entities that you've encountered, and, being observed changes the way we act. We know Schrodinger's cat, but tell me more about the observer and the way you've experienced it.
In my day-to-day personal life, I don't have the consciousness to be like consciously thinking about it, like, how you experience it. But definitely, in the psychedelic space, I look at life from a different kind of lens than my conscious state.
Okay.
It's like, normally we see time as a series of events, right? Event A happened, then event B happened, and we see cause and effect. And when you observe your life or your thoughts in the psychedelic space, you see a completely different view of this reality. You see everything that has happened, is happening, and will happen in the future simultaneously. Like you inhabit the observation of all potential realities.
Yep.
In a sense, you get like the divine eye, like the observer, like the observation of like a god kind of view of everything. You see
Yep.
yourself and everything in your reality across all dimensions happening at the same time in all these different ways. You see the micro choices you make. I think of it like how a tree spans out with its branches slowly, expressing themselves outwards, and there's definitely some kind of order to this chaos of our human experience, this kind of mathematics of the universe that exists in every single aspect of our reality. And if you read on like transurfing reality and all these kind of more esoteric books, they always speak of the impact of the mind and the observer on your reality, like how much of what you experience is directly dependent on the way you perceive it. You can perceive an event as good, or you can perceive it as bad. If you perceive it as good, even if it's the worst event in the world, the very fact that you've perceived it as something good activates a timeline of your reality where the event becomes a pathway to something good. So, as the observer, you have the choice to decide, is this good or is this bad? And reality is going to happen regardless of your decision. So, it's in your best interest to observe a good outcome. Like The Secret and all of this stuff,
Yeah.
it's a money making scam in that sense, but the concept of the way you think, that is a very real aspect. Like you're not going to think yourself into a Bugatti or a super yacht with a bunch of models and like piles of cocaine. That's not going to happen, right? It's not how the world works. You can't just materialize value. But what you can do is you can control your thoughts, and your thoughts are going to dictate your reality. They're going to dictate the decisions you make that allow you to make the right choices that could lead down the path of your yacht, for example. So that's observing the way you think.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why I have Dr. X on. Like, that was brilliant. I love it. It's so hard to do in that way, but it becomes a pattern. Like when you see a tragedy unfold in your life, if you can, and it won't happen immediately, and it may take a lot of work, but if you can find the good in there, if you can realize that the tragedies you're up against are the greatest opportunity for growth you've ever had in your life, then you can start making some changes and start working towards whatever that dream and vision you have is. Oh, here we go. Got Diego chiming in. Thanks, Diego. He says, "Hey George, you big baby. Why don't you ask my question?" And his question is, if you meet God on ayahuasca, do you shake hands or just walk away, nod, and say hi? Big fan of your work. Thanks, Diego. I appreciate it. I'll put it to Dr. X. What do you do when you meet these entities?
Well,
You engage
let's
them?
suppose I've hypothetically met one of these entities and had a conversation with it. For me personally, I basically figured out that, I'm a human being. I am not intelligent enough to understand everything. So, hypothetically, if I've met an entity, I would have told said entity, listen, I'm giving you the pilot seat of this life, okay? You clearly know way more than I can ever hope to understand about how this reality works in the slightest, but I know, as I describe in my YouTube channel, the ass hair of the divine. It's the tip of the smallest hair at the bottom, just a fraction, minuscule. And from that knowledge, I know enough to say, I surrender this life to that entity. I give you control of this world. I surrender to it, hypothetically. You make a bit of a deal with something out there,
Yeah. It's scary though, right? Like I know that I've been in some pretty deep trips where like I've seen things I don't understand, and I've been I call it what Mircea Eliade calls the terror before the sacred. Like sometimes you see
Mm,
things and you're like, holy shit, what was that? And like I've been paralyzed. Like I can't even move or I can't even like do anything.
same.
And I'm just like, Oh man, there was a trip I had a while back where like I found myself in this cosmic room of, you know, otherworldly to try to put an adjective on it. And it was like there was all these suits around me and it was like, try on these ideas, George. And like this one was like a mass murderer. And I'm like, I don't think I want to try that on. And they're like, try it on, George. And I'm like, I don't think I want to, you know? And there's all these different suits out there. But every time I put on a suit, it allowed me to live that life and see an aspect that was something I would never do in real life. But you could put on the suit. It was like, here's all these ideas. Try one on. And it was a friendly, calm, but incredibly terrifying voice inviting me to be all these things, you know? But it's that terror before the secret when you see the potential of what is out there. It's maddening. It's both divine and maddening, right? Like it's, I don't know. It blows my mind. So I guess, Diego, my answer to that question would be try and communicate. Try on the ideas that they're giving you, regardless of how frightening they are. So I don't know. It's tough to talk about them, but I love talking to you about them because you've been in these spaces, man, and you get it.
Yeah. They have knowledge to share from the ether. These entities come from higher realms of consciousness, and our greatest forms of creativity are often just expressions of the divine intelligence acting through us. The ideas we pull through into our reality from the veil between realities, it's very likely it is just intelligent design acting through us.
Yes. It's interesting you bring that up. When I think of like not Tesla the vehicle, but Tesla the creator, and so many other creators that you read biographies about that are on the fringe, that call him a genius, call him a madman, they often talk about channeling this divine intelligence. They often talk about a spirit that talks to them, that comes in a form of a bird. Or if you look back at sort of the Hopi mythologies, or sort of the indigenous wisdom that is here for a lot of us to begin learning, it speaks about channeling this divine energy and stuff on that levels. And I think you kind of have to, if you want to do what you have done, Dr. X, and walk away from a career in medicine, or maybe it's Diego out there, or Alicia out there, or me out there. If you want to walk away from the life you're living, you have to channel the divine inspiration that will guide you on the way. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. There is intelligent design to this cosmos. There's patterns and things that exist beyond mere coincidence. And if you close your mind to the idea of synchronicity and the ideas that things actually do happen for a reason, then you most likely will manifest a reality where nothing actually works out. When you let the divine intelligence into your life, you start to see the solutions to your problems when you're not looking for them. In psycho-cybernetics, they speak of this voice the internal dialogue you have with yourself and the identity of yourself, and how critical that is in shaping your success. It's no chance that even medical research has shown, like, just thinking about throwing darts onto a dartboard without actually doing them improves your skill at doing something. In a sense, your thoughts and this intelligence that you inhabit are very much a part of your life. And absolutely, if you want to go the creative route, you're going to need to pull knowledge from the other side. Like, it's not going to be easy to be a creator without being able to tap into source, to tap into your inner, most deepest self and pull out that inspiration into your work. Your passion comes from that connection, from being on the path, from being on your main mission, from being on the main quest. And if you choose to walk it, it's going to suck. Like, it's going to be hard, and it's not going to be easy. Nobody's going to hand you anything, and you're going to be confused most of the time, and you're going to compare yourself to other people and be like, okay, cool, great. I have 125 subs. I guess I'm famous at this point. But you need to remind yourself that this is the path that you've chosen. It's your path. And if you have faith in it, the divine will show you, the way to succeed.
I love it. And I couldn't have said it any better. And this is exactly why I've been trying to get you on my podcast for over a year. I'm so thankful, Dr. X, to call you a friend and to have these conversations with you. I love the way you so elegantly put out the way you think, and beyond that, the way you're willing to share with everybody. Like, you've been incredibly generous with not only your time, but all the videos you're making. And to everybody within the sound of my voice, go down to the links and check out his videos. I honestly believe you are among the top creators in the psychedelic field for the next generation, man. Like, I see what you're doing, and like, I see it, man. And so do all my guests right here. So all my guests, go down, check him out over there. He's an amazing individual. But before I let you go, man, where can people find you? What do you have coming up, and what are you excited about?
So you can find me at Cosmic Buddha MD, named after a strain of magic mushrooms called Cosmic Buddhas. It was a trip where I went on a spaceship and saw some Hebrew text. Wild experience. Wild, but it's where I decided to call the channel Cosmic Buddhas, because it's like the wisdom of the ages from the space and the mushrooms and whatever else. So Cosmic Buddha. I have a TikTok, a Twitter, where I post pro psychedelic like content. I try and, be an activist. Yes, go psychedelics. Yay. Got like 22 followers over there. So not near a Ferrari, nowhere near there yet. Got like 6 on the TikTok, and then the YouTube is where I make the bulk of the content. What am I excited about next? I had inspiration to make a more kind of chilled video about why I quit the corporate life and decided on a different path. And I want to make a psychedelic tier list for the younger generations, a psychedelic party tier list, so that people can, not medical advice, guys, entertainment, not medical advice. Jesus, please. But a tier list on, the best psychedelics if you're in a social situation, because I see a lot of the youth these days use these substances willy-nilly and end up in asylums because they're not using them with intention, or with some foreplanning of okay, I've never taken a hero's dose before. You know what's a great time to do it? When I'm in a crowd of 1 million strangers with loud, obnoxious music. I think I can help people see that a lot of the problems they face with psychedelics is just from using the substances without the insight and the correct manner to approach them safely. So I do want to talk about that. And what am I excited about? Well, I started a little bit of a side hustle. It's called Dr. X Edits, and it's video editing and design primarily for the cannabis and psychedelic community. So I draw inspiration from psilocybin and psychedelics in general. When I edit my content, I try and bring that energy into it. And yeah, it's for people who are in that space. Maybe you have content around cannabis or psychedelics in general, and you want someone who can tell your story in a way from a background in clinical medicine, not just some random hippie guy with dreadlocks who smokes a giant joint. Hey man, what's up? But someone who has actual double degree and shit like that, all the corpo crap, check mark, yay. But who has a positive view of plant medicine, has actually used these things, not talking from their hypothetical experience, and who is genuinely passionate. So Dr. X Edits, video and design, psychedelic stuff. You can reach me on LinkedIn if you're listening over here, and we can discuss if I can, by the power of the divine, create content on your behalf that hits your audience or business endeavors in a way that, makes your brand come to light. Not a designer though, guys, figuring everything out as I go.
I love it. Everybody on my LinkedIn channel, check him out. The guy does magic with editing and videos, and he's a wizard in communication. And you can tell by the vocabulary he uses, the thoughts that he's had, but more importantly, by the experiences that he's had. So, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. X, hang on briefly afterwards. But to everybody else within the sound of my voice, thank you so much for participating today, for being here. And we'll be back soon with another podcast for you. That's all we got. Aloha.